All right, welcome, Unsecurity podcast listeners. This is episode 169. The date is Friday, March 25th. You'll hear about this in a few days after that. It's good to be here. I've got my good friend, as usual, Mr. Brad Nye. Hi, Brad.
Hello. How are you doing?
How's life?
Yeah. Busy, right?
When we talked to, we visit before the show, for a good 15, 20 minutes, just me and you
Yes.
talking and catching up. And, we're busy. I don't, this week for me, and I've been doing this for a really long time, just like you have. This week for me I've never been busier in 30 years.
I've
than I am
had
right now.
days where it's been like that, but never a week like you had. Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm
It's good to be
surprised you're awake
bringing the
right now.
plane in. I got some sleep last night, which was really nice. But then, what happens when you go so long without sleep and then you do get a night's sleep? I woke up this morning and for the first 2 hours, I was like,
Super
I
proud.
don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out, do I want coffee? I think I want coffee, but do I? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize that I got up, and my wife's not here either. She's down in Mexico right now, so this week has been that too. I actually put on my sweatpants backwards. Didn't even realize it. I was trying to put something in my pocket, and I was like, what is wrong with my pockets? Well, it's because it was backwards. So that's the life of a security person.
Yeah.
Ugh. So anyway, it's going to be better next week. I think it's really important for all security people, work hard, play hard. That's one of our core values. And so I worked really hard this week. Next week, I'm going to play hard. Next week, I'm not working nearly as hard as I am now. And next week, you get to take some time off, which kudos to you, man. I'm excited about that.
This will be the first vacation since March of 19. Thank you, pandemic.
I'm so, yeah. As somebody who loves you as much as I do, man, it makes me proud. It makes me really happy that, your quality of life is good
Oh,
like that. You got to do it.
Cannot wait. It's gonna be nice. Not taking
Yeah.
my work laptop, turning off email.
Good
Important
for you,
people know how to get a
man.
hold of
That's
me.
awesome. That's awesome. So next week we'll have, in your stead, we'll have Oscar Minks joining
Yeah.
the show, which will be fun because he'll be with me. So next week I'll be in Mexico. Next week he'll be with me, and we'll do the show and try to do you proud while you're gone.
Oh, I'm sure. You guys will do great. Oscar's so much fun to talk with.
I know. I love talking to them. All right. So this week, the show is, we got a couple of things we're going to talk about. So Brad was on television this week, which was pretty cool. Local television here in Minnesota, in the Minneapolis market. We're going to talk to Brad about what he talked about and how that went. I actually didn't even have the recording because I don't watch TV, so I didn't see it live. And then I had to ask you for the link this morning, so I haven't even watched it yet, but
That's
we'll
pretty
provide
good.
that for people. No, man. I think it's awesome that you
It was
because
fun. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was funny because I told Katie, my wife, but we didn't tell the kids, so we just had the news on. And my youngest lost his mind when he was sitting there and he's looks up at the TV because he hears my voice and he just could not comprehend. He's like, "Wait, is that for real?" So that was kind of cool.
That's awesome. That is super cool, man. Because we all want our kids to be proud of us, right?
Yeah.
And that's a great feeling. I remember looking up to my dad, and I thought my dad was the toughest guy ever. So I'd always brag about my dad could beat up your dad, kind of thing. And until my dad had to sit me down and go, "Stop saying that," because I don't want to get
Get me in
in
trouble.
fights with people. Yeah,
Right.
it's okay if you think I'm tough, but yeah, don't tell people that my dad's can beat up your dad thing. So we'll talk about that, and then in line with what you talked about on television, is there's a couple of things that were released by the White House in the last week or so. First is the statement and I'm reading, I'm quoting the title, Statement by President Biden on Our Nation's Cybersecurity, which pretty interesting stuff there. And then there's a link there to a fact sheet. And the title of this is Act Now to Protect Against Potential Cyber Attacks. Both of these were released on the same day. So we're going to talk about that because here we are in, the middle of an invasion / war between, people, countries, big countries and things.
Well, then
I think it's really relevant.
he made the comment of they're seeing increased activity, like pre-planning for cyber attacks from Russia. So, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. So tell me about your television show. What day was that?
It was on Tuesday, and it was around exactly this. What does this mean? It was right after Biden made that statement, and the short of it is, I said I think it's a really good checklist, right? They should be, but the problem is, why is it now coming out? This is stuff we've been preaching for years and years, but I'm glad it came out. It's pretty good. The only thing I think was missing was the know your external exposure. But yeah, I think the news it turned into. I was very short notice, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. So I was thinking it was more business focused, but then as we were talking, it turns out they're more like what do consumers need to worry about? What do the smaller mom and pop shops need to worry about? Should they be worried? I was like, well, honestly, probably not, but you should still do this stuff, right? They're going to be going after critical infrastructure, and we talked through this 16 different critical infrastructure statements, which, if you look at it, covers a huge swath of businesses. So, it was pretty much that. Like, hey, if you, as an individual, probably not too worried about Russia attacking you individually, but you still should be doing all these best practices regardless.
Yeah, good advice. Well, we used to laugh at the preppers, right? The people that were stocking up on water and canned foods and everything in their basement, or even digging, whatever they were digging in their backyards. We used to laugh at them, but now it's like, well, that may not be a bad idea to have some drinking water
Right.
on standby, because we know that critical infrastructure, we know that water and power in particular are highly impactful and probably being targeted. So, if I've got no water when I turn on the faucet, what are you going to do? It's not a bad idea to have some water on hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Oscar and I are working on some stuff around that we'll be hopefully announcing here soon. So keep an eye out for that.
That's cool. And I'm working with a couple of states on helping them secure their water. And it's funny how we're still here, like you said. I think there's two things we could do in a short period of time to protect our water supply. And it wouldn't, so protect, right? Let's define what protect is. Protect isn't zero risk. Protect isn't, there's still always going to be risk. You connected these things to an internet, to a global network, right? Which means they're always going to be connected unless you disconnect them.
Right.
But two things that we can do is we can, identify the attack surface of these water, and there's 170,000 of them, by the way. It's not it's 3 of them.
No,
Cities have them. Yeah. So you can identify the attack surface, go after everything that has a login. If it has a login, either turn it off if you don't need it, or secure it with multi-factor authentication. That would go a long ways towards reducing the likelihood of these things getting attacked.
Yeah.
And then on the second side, which is a little more work, would be to really button down your egress traffic coming out of these networks, because the way these attacks work, there's a command and control component. So it's not only does the attacker get in, but now there's a communication back to them so that they can, trigger whatever they want to trigger.
Yep.
If you block all the egress traffic that's not specifically required, on the firewall, you block that command and control traffic.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, we're working on something hopefully coming out very soon that will detail
I'm excited about
that stuff. So, yeah, me too.
That's awesome. Well, so one of the statements. So good job. I'm excited to go watch that video. I'm happy. I'm happy that when people that are passionate about the mission and aren't passionate about selling you more stuff, I'm cheering it on from the sidelines. Go. Plus I know you. So the first statement, on March 21st, 2022, so that was 4 days ago. That would have been Monday, I believe. On the White House website, so whitehouse.gov, there's a briefing room. And in the briefing room, there was a statement released by President Biden on our nation's cybersecurity. And, some interesting things here. I don't want to pick it apart too much, but I think everybody should be aware of it. Everybody should go read it themselves.
Absolutely. It's short too.
It's
not super long. You're not going to sink hours into reading this. It's minutes.
Yeah, and it's not an executive order. This is a briefing. This is a release, a statement, essentially. So there's nothing governing by this. It's not super long and extensive. You don't have to do anything, but I think a good, prudent, responsible person would.
Yeah.
Read it. So in that statement, it points out that critical infrastructure, for the most part, is private, right? It's private industry. So the government is somewhat restricted in what they can do to or for them. Some of it, they need to take responsibility themselves and step up the game. There's a couple of links in there. In the last paragraph, there's a link that says, excuse my language, harden your cyber defenses immediately. And if you click that link, that brings you to a fact sheet. Yeah. And the fact sheet is titled Act Now to Protect Against Potential Cyber Attacks. And it elaborates a little bit more on what he said in the statement. And then there's a link there to CISA's Shields Up campaign, which I hate the name of that, but okay, fine. We'll go with it. Because Shields Up to me just seems too corny. People aren't going to pay attention. Security people will, but we're not trying to reach out to security people. We're trying to reach out to normal, everyday people who may not know that we're at risk.
Yeah, I don't know. I can see that Shields Up from a sci-fi perspective, right? Like, hey, Shields Up. I can see that where they came up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see where they came up with it, for sure. So then there's a list. It says, there's a checklist almost, and it says, we urge companies to execute the following steps with urgency. Right. And we can go through these. Yeah.
I was going to say, what I liked is...
Go ahead, man.
There's only 8 of them, and they're well written. It's not an overwhelming thing to look at.
Well, and I don't like 2 of them, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. And you and I have always had such mutual respect for each other, so it's not like I'm picking on you.
No.
I'm picking on some of these statements. The first one I love, right? Mandate the use of multi-factor authentications on your systems to make it harder for attackers to get into your system. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Anybody who argues against that is like, why would you argue against that? The second one, I take I take exception to. Deploy modern security tools on your computers and devices to continuously look for and mitigate threats. My issue with this is most people already don't know what it is they're trying to protect. They already aren't using technology responsibly. The last thing I want you to do is add more technology that you're not using responsibly. This to me seems like a motivation to sell more crap to you when you already don't know the basics and the fundamentals.
Right. Well, I get where you're coming from. I can agree with that. Would that have been on my top 8? No. Asset inventory and external hardening would have been the two that really are missing. But I mean, it is still.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. If I was using my technology responsibly already, I don't need any modern security tools.
True.
I don't need any of them.
Yeah.
So, it's like buy more tools or use things responsibly. It's like,
right. Well, like I said,
because they're different things.
But I get where you're coming from. I see their side of it too.
Yeah. So that's where I stopped the first time I read this. I was like, son of a. All right, I got to go take a break. Because I don't like. It's very, very frustrating in our industry how we continue to push new things to people when they already don't know how to use the things we gave them.
Oh, yeah.
I really want people to focus on, okay, rather than plugging in new blinky light things all over my house and my, whatever, hold on a second. How do you use that thing responsibly before you plug it into your network?
Mm-hmm.
How does your network actually work? And you do need to know that, regardless of whether you're like, well, IT people know that. You need to know the basics because it's in your house, it's in your business. What are the steps to make it? Because if we talked about those two things to protect critical infrastructure like water. I don't need a tool for that. I already have the tool. I already have a firewall. Just use it right.
Right. Well, and that was one of the points that I made in that got into the news segment was, what can people do? What should they be doing? And it was, know what's on your network. Do you know, is your dishwasher on the network? Is your refrigerator on the network? Is that on the same network as you're doing your banking on? So know what you have on there and know what's being sent out.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's the same security. It's the same concepts. It's the same basic functions at home as they are in an office or at anywhere else, right? I was teaching this week the CVCISO class. We were talking about asset management, and it was enlightening to know how few people know how to do it. Because I just assume things, but okay.
I know. I think we get into trouble because we do it, and we've done it, and do it, quote unquote, the right way, and just assume other people know that, and they don't. And like you said, I've had that happen where I'm like, oh, well, let's talk about that then. I just assumed.
Exactly. Because I want to help, you know what I mean? So if I'm talking about something, assuming that you already, like, it'd be like an auto mechanic telling me, yeah, just switch out the alternator, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, whoa, what's an alternator?
Right.
I don't do this for a living, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I was, as I was telling these, the students, I run an Nmap scan on my networks at home once a week. You know what I mean? It's, they're scheduled, and I see what's on my network once a week, and there's a diff, so I can see the difference between last time and this time. And I do that with everything else that I have, right? Just because I'm interested, and I like having multiple things check and whatever. And so I had identified something this week that I hadn't seen before. I was like, what is this thing? Well, it turns out it was a GE Sync smart light bulb thing that my daughter had put in her light in her upstairs, right? Because she liked the LED and she can control it and make the lights change.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So probably not a big risk, but it's like, hold up. You got to tell me about this stuff because I don't want you just plugging something into the network.
Right.
I'm going to say yes to everything, but we're going to use it responsibly. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I have mine set up to alert me if anything new shows up. So same bit.
That's what I have down in Mexico. On the house down there. And so, while we're not living there full time, we rent it out, right? So when I'm not there, somebody else is living there. And so Marlo says, yeah, so I see when people have arrived because they all connect to the
yeah.
network, and I'm like, oh, okay, looks like they've arrived. And then when they're supposed to have left, if I still see them on the network, I'm like, huh, they're still there. Must have had a travel issue or something.
Right.
But there's that, and I could if I wanted to, and I haven't turned this on obviously because I don't want privacy issues. I could turn on seeing where you're going and what you're doing, but
Right.
that's creepy. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that. So, but anyway, okay. So the second one was deploy modern security tools. And I would say deploy modern security tools if you've already mastered the basics.
Yeah.
And if you ask yourself the question, and if you read that and you go, what are the basics? That should be a big tell that you haven't mastered them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So the third one was check with your cybersecurity professionals to make sure your systems are patched and protected against all known vulnerabilities, and change passwords across your network so that previously stolen credentials are useless to malicious actors. I like that one, but you should know how to do this yourself as well. So the cybersecurity professionals who are doing this, that you're supposed to check with them, check with the right ones. Check with ones that are willing to show you how this is done in case they're not available. Ultimately, this is not your cybersecurity professional's responsibility. It's yours. These are your systems. These are your applications that need to be patched. So I like it. Patching, awesome. Patch all day.
Yep. And
Do you agree with that?
reading through this and talking through it, it does feel like these are very much aimed at, executive level, right? It's not the day-to-day workers that can really, yes, it's great for them to ask, but they can't, implement or, mandate these things.
Well, even executives, I think, I tell people too, it's the same thing at home as it is at work, right? So at home, I am the CEO of this little company, right? My family. It's my responsibility to make sure that they're protected. It's my responsibility to make sure that these things are being used responsibly. It's the same thing at the office. We just delegate things to other people to make sure that they're actually doing the work. But I should still know what this is and the importance of
100%.
it.
Yeah, I fully agree.
I think the big thing missing in a lot of this stuff is always just accountability. People stepping up, taking responsibility for what's theirs.
Right.
The fourth bullet point, back up your data. Ensure you have offline backups beyond the reach of malicious actors. Good one. I like that.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah. And that same thing goes for home too, by the way. If you're thinking, is my stuff backed up? I don't know. You should.
Right.
I do have stuff backed up. I have stuff backed up in a couple of different places. Now, it's not beyond the reach of attackers, though. I do have one place where I've got things backed up that is disconnected, but, my Apple Cloud backup,
Yeah.
that's not disconnected from it. So if anybody's thinking at home, well, I've got Apple Cloud backup, it's disconnected from malicious actors. That's not true. They could easily pivot.
Yep.
So there's that. And then I like this one too. Run exercises and drill your emergency plans so that you are prepared to respond quickly to minimize the impact of an attack.
Yeah. I can't, nothing to add. Do it.
And, every one of these also applies at home.
Right.
This also should apply at home. What are you going to do if power goes out for a long period of time? What are you going to do if there is no water when you turn on your spigot, if no water comes out for a long period of time? You need to play these things out because these things come closer and closer to reality, the more and more dangerous our world becomes. What are you going to do when, like I said, when I found something on the network that I hadn't seen before? What's your plan for it?
Right.
What's your plan if your daughter starts getting cyberbullied online?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And we've talked about that. What you do at home and what you do at work from cyber, it's going to translate. So, yeah.
And that's the thing that wouldn't, because some people will read this and go, hey, and they'll forward it to their IT person or forward it to their security person and say, hey, can you just make sure we're doing this stuff?
No,
When, yes, that's fine to do, but you should be reading it too, because this applies to you. Everybody. This applies to everybody.
100%.
So the next one is encrypt your data so it cannot be used if it is stolen. I like encryption. I'm an encryption guy.
Well, it prevents that blackmail later, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't get you if it's encrypted. Right. They can't release it.
Exactly. Unless they, it seems like what they've been doing when they do find encrypted data is they get the key too. So we can go deeper into that
key
later.
Management's important.
Yep. The next one is educate your employees to common tactics that attackers will use over email or through websites, and encourage them to report if their computers or phones have shown unusual behavior, such as unusual crashes or operating very slowly. I like that.
Yeah, we preach that all the time.
So and so taking that again to home, I mean, the people in my house are not my employees, but it's this responsibility relationship, right? If I am, and somebody has to be responsible. I don't care who it is. Somebody has to be responsible at home for these things. And so talking to your children about these are common things that are happening online, and I want you to be safe. I want you to tell me about these things. Talk to your wife. Talk to your husband. Talk to your significant other. These should be dinner table conversations, semi-regularly. And they're not.
No, I know. Yeah.
And these are people that I love. I love my family. I don't want to see them get hurt. I don't want them to make poor choices and find themselves in a bad situation. So that's what it's all about. It's not about high-tech cybersecurity, blah, blah, blah. This is about the people. Always about the people.
Well, and there's plenty of good resources out there to use. I mean,
we made the S2Me, right?
Right.
The S2Me. Go to https://s2me.io. Is it the perfect tool? No, there's no such thing as a perfect tool. Will it get you talking about some of the things about cybersecurity? It should. If you don't like it, tell us about it and we'll make it better. So the last one on this list is engage proactively with your local FBI field office or CISA regional office to establish relationships in advance of any cyber incidents. Please encourage your IT and security leadership to visit the websites of CISA and the FBI, where they will find technical information and other useful resources. Good. It's good to have those contacts ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to try and figure out who you should.
And what I would do.
No,
we get that a lot.
Yeah. Who should I be talking to? Everything's down. No, bad.
Mm-hmm. Very bad, yeah. And when you reach out to these folks, all you're really reaching out for is, who should I call? Who should I talk to when I do have an incident? I want to call the right number. I want to email the right place. And they'll be more than happy to give you that information. Because some of us are intimidated to reach out to, federal government folks, but they're normal people just like you and me, most of them.
Right.
Especially when you're talking field office stuff, because field office, they're a few layers down from, the purely bureaucratic stuff that goes on, at the highest levels.
Yeah, a little more active.
Mm-hmm. And then this other part, really just applies to, there's more to this statement, and it really applies to, technology and software companies. Mm-hmm. And I wish that list was a lot more in depth, because not only do we use technology irresponsibly, we also make technology irresponsibly. And it's like putting guns into people's hands and saying, here. And sometimes the guns don't work. Sometimes the guns, shoot you instead of the intruder.
Right. Well, and I think it's kind of buried at the bottom of that one, but it's the last bullet point. Implement the security practices mandated in the executive order improving our nation's cybersecurity, which is Executive Order 14028 in May of 21. And that one is much more in depth. So I wish they had linked to it.
It is.
Make it easier for people.
Right. And it'd be nice if that somehow we encouraged that executive order to be more like apply it to, I mean, you can't, but apply it to private sector as well, because that executive order only applies to government agencies, which is
right. But it's good.
Like
It's good practice, right? Like it's a good resource to
Totally.
reference.
Absolutely, it is. Yep, yep. So that's that's this week's show. I do encourage everybody to go out there and read it, and truly, it's just not my responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility to protect your family like it is yours. It's nobody else's responsibility to protect your business more than it is yours. We're here to help. We want to help. We want to give good advice all the time, but you got to listen. You got to act on it. Be careful of the people who are biased, who are representing products that want to sell you more stuff. Most of the stuff that you need to do doesn't cost you a dime. It just changes. You have to change the way you do some things.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, these things are always therapeutic for me because it gets me an opportunity to preach at the end of the week. So,
Yeah.
preach it, brother.
Fun. It's fun because we do agree on most of it, and when we don't, it's nice to get that counterpoint.
Well, and even when we do disagree, I think it's different perspectives. Right? I was looking at it from this way. You were looking at it from this way. When we both look at it from the same way, we agree.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
When I put myself in your shoes and I listen to what you just said and how you viewed it, I'm like, okay, I can see that. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's like, what do they call that? Respectful dialogue? That's not dead here in the United States yet, is it?
Well, it's not dead at FRSecure. That's for sure.
Love it. Love it. We can set examples on that too. All right. Any shout outs for you, man, this week?
A couple. Well, actually, this one just popped into my head. We have a couple of newer people that questioned some of this stuff and how we were doing it. And I was like, awesome. Thank you. Because they were like apologizing and like, hey, I want you to know I'm not attacking. I don't, And it's like, no, if you think you found something that is not correct, let me know so we can fix it. Or if you think you can improve something, let me know. So shout out to them for doing what has to be a hard thing to do to speak up. And then the other, I'll just give a shout out to my oldest. She suffered a concussion last week and still kind of suffering through it. So giving her props for doing it. It's hard. You can't do anything to make it go faster, and you just have to rest and take it easy, and it's really hard for her. So shout out to her for doing the right thing.
Shout out and prayers for her too, man, because I've met your kids, and you have beautiful kids, man. They're just amazing, and so she's in my prayers.
She's getting
for
better.
sure.
We're starting to see improvements, so that's good.
Good. That is good. Yeah, that's one of those things you just don't want to mess around with. You know what I mean? Concussions can have lingering effects, so it's good that it was identified, and it's good that it's being treated. I'll give a shout out to, I'll give a shout out to Ryan Cloutier over at Security Studio. He deals with me on a regular basis, and that's got to be hard. Because I'm a squirrel chaser, and he's picked up the slack at, because as I've been doing the CVCISO training and all that, there's a lot of things I can't do right now, and he's been picking it up and doing it with a great attitude. I've really seen him. There was a meeting that we had a week and a half ago, and a lot of these meetings I'll just sit in the background unless somebody calls on me for something, and he was talking, and I was like, holy crap, he sounds presidential. That's the first time I've actually heard him sound like
That's funny.
sound like the position he's in. You know what I mean? Because you try to put people in these positions because you think they can grow into them sometimes. And that was with him. And I heard him and I was like, oh my God, that was good. So anyway, shout out to him.
Yep.
Enjoy your trip next week, brother. I'm
thank
super
you.
excited. Send me some pictures if you think about it.
Yeah, we'll do. I'm excited. It's going to be nice.
All right. Well, the listeners will see me next week. You won't see Brad. You'll see him in 2 weeks. So take care.